Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest, who has juvenile idiopathic arthritis and is a wheelchair user, is the author of the memoir Within My Spokes. Her name is Jenna Udenberg, and my interview with Jenna will follow the note-taking sound. Jenna Udenberg, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Your disability is known as juvenile idiopathic arthritis. What is that, and how does it affect your daily life?
Yeah, great question. So juvenile idiopathic arthritis is just typically like regular arthritis. So a lot of people think only older people get arthritis, and that is false. There's a good number, I forget the statistic, but the Arthritis Foundation loves to say kids get arthritis too. So juvenile just means that I got it when I was a kid. Idiopathic just means that they're not sure of its origin. When I was first diagnosed, it was juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which a lot of people are familiar with rheumatoid. But then, like about a decade ago, the medical world came back and said, it doesn't really fit the rheumatoid disease pattern. And I'm like, I could have told you that since age 7. And for me, I became a manual wheelchair user by age 8. So my disease was very rapid, very disabling from the very get-go. As a child, I didn't really know that was a big deal, but according to the medical world, that was a very rapid onset and very harsh. And so I've been using a manual wheelchair now for 37 years. And yeah, life has been very interesting. Tribulations throughout the time, but great blessings and great mountaintop experiences along the way.
Your nonprofit organization is called Above and Beyond with You, and that ends with the letter U. What is your work for your nonprofit organization like?
Yeah, so Above and Beyond stands for the fact that you can go above and beyond the Americans with Disabilities Act. So often people feel like, we only can live up to code. And the reality is that the Americans with Disability Act and all the codes that go with it is just the floor. So by engaging the disability community and population, you can make things more functional, more inclusive, using universal design, getting people's input. So at Above and Beyond with You, we love to amplify other people's voices and lived experiences and stories to make the world more inclusive and accessible, starting in our own backyard of the North Shore of Lake Superior in northern Minnesota. And the With You is a nod to my music career. I was a music educator for 19 years, and all my little kindergartners, little 5-year-olds, could not say Udenberg. Many times I can't say it well. So they changed my name to Miss You. And the with in our logo is larger than anything else because we belong together. And we believe one of our core values is working together to make the world a better place and more accessible and inclusive. So it's not just they're going to hire us to be a consultant or they're going to hire us to do some training or a site audit. Yes, that is part of our work, but more importantly, we want to come alongside businesses, agencies, entities, and make sure that relationship is built and we're building bridges throughout all the communities.
Your nonfiction book is titled Within My Spokes. Is it a memoir or a different type of nonfiction book? And without spoiling too much about it, what is it about?
Yeah, it is my memoir. So you learn about me as a little girl. You learn about my diagnosis story. You hear about my plans of suicide and suicidal ideation due to medical things. You hear about all the different surgeries I've gone through in life. You hear about me becoming a community leader through the Blandon Foundation and then becoming a 2020 Bush Fellow. And then it leads up to the creation of Above and Beyond with You and becoming an author of not only this book, but I also write for our local newspaper called Lake County Press every other week. And that column is titled Local View from 4'2".
What motivated you to write a memoir?
Since I was young, a lot of people have told me that I need to write a book, primarily around all of my medical situations, different stories, kind of my outlook of life. And so being at home during the pandemic, being told by my school district that they weren't interested in accommodating my work from home order, the second full year of school, being put on an early retirement, a disability retirement, and being a 2020 Bush Fellow was really the whole impetus. I had the time, I had the funding behind me to get the training and education of how to be an author. And there's a lot to it to becoming a published author, even as a self-published author. So I'm very grateful to all those circumstances that made this possible.
You mentioned one instance of where you faced disability-based discrimination in your answer to the previous question. What is another example of that, and were you able to overcome that particular instance of discrimination, and if so, how?
Yeah, great question. Unfortunately, there's so many, it's hard to choose one. But a lot of my circumstances happened in the education setting, whether it was in high school and dealing with teachers not wanting to make our band room accessible, not wanting to make the accommodations of us having the band room in a local school, and how that impacted the schedules and buses and all that. And later on in life, I found out that that person had said, "Why are we doing all this for one person?" And I was the lead trumpet player of both our jazz band and our high school band. And I was becoming a music educator as my career in the future. So to hear teachers saying those things about me even later on was really heartbreaking, but it showed more about their heart and their level of experience compared to me. And unfortunately, very similar struggles continued even when I went on to university and getting my bachelor's. I think at one time I had 4 different discrimination filings with the chancellor's office because of professors saying really horrible things or not making different activities and expected graded things wheelchair accessible. So I would love to say that I haven't faced that, but I have, and especially even sometimes in medical settings. So it's very pervasive and it's getting better, but there's still a lot of work to do.
From start to finish, how long did it take you to write your book?
It took about a year of doing different writing sessions, a couple of times a week. And I had a great book coach who said, write the stories when you have the energy for it and the heart and the spirit behind it. So that was very wise advice because my story does, as I shared earlier, go through some really deep and some hard memories and some traumatic situations. And I did take about a 2-month hiatus in between it because after you're reliving your whole story, after a while you get tired of hearing your own voice, or at least I did. And so I was very thankful for taking that time away in order to recalibrate and come back more on fire for the project.
Are there any physical accommodations that are necessary for you to write a book manuscript? And if so, what are some of them?
That's a great question. I really didn't use any assistive technology. I just used my Mac laptop and, typed away on the good days and took rest days on my days that weren't so great. But I know there's lots of other authors that use, voice to text and some of those different technologies.
Is your book independently, traditionally, or hybrid published? And what was it like getting your book published?
I am self-published, and so we used Amazon primarily, and then eventually I went through Ingram Spark, so that way it can be available at Barnes and Noble and other locations. There was a lot, like I said earlier, that I learned about the whole publishing thing. Like, thankfully, I have my cover is from a picture of me that a dear friend took. And so, like, that was kind of a less intensive approach since I owned the image and all of those kinds of things. Um, and I do have some pictures in the book as well. So that was interesting learning about, costs of color printing versus black and white printing and whether you keep it all in one section or you spread it out throughout the book, which mine's throughout the book. So you can see Jenna at different stages when I'm actually talking about those parts of life. And then, all the different kinds of editors that you can choose from and all that. And I'm still learning a lot. Eventually, I'd love to write another book and especially do a children's book, but still trying to muddle through other parts of being a published author before jumping on the next one.
You mentioned that you have a couple of more books that are at least in the very preliminary stages of being in the works. Without spoiling too much about them, what are some ideas you have for books that you intend to write in the future?
Yeah. Well, my first project is I want to get Within My Spokes into audiobook format, and my goal is to have that released in October as part of the Disability Employment Awareness Month. Um, but after that, I would love to work with a local artist illustrator to kind of maybe highlight a few of the stories that are in Within My Spokes, but make it more kid friendly and more user friendly to encourage kids and families that are maybe going through similar medical experiences to know that there are ways of getting around the chaos and the trauma and the things. And then I would love to do some kind of like a youth adult. I don't know if I would want to go the nonfiction route or if I would want to switch it and take some of my stories and turn it into more of a fiction story. So kids more in the middle school level, maybe addressing more of my mental health times, my depression, and those kinds of things. Again, there's just so many different facets to my story that could lend a lot of ways of helping others. So we'll see where it all leads.
There are some people who have a major aversion to using the word disability to describe disabled people, preferring to use terms like differently abled or more commonly special needs. Why is the word disability not a bad word?
Yeah, I love speaking on this. For me, especially being in the education setting for so many years, I thought that all those original words were okay. And even, using handicap. And so I would say for me, in probably the last 7 years or so, I was like, I hate the word handicap because I'm not a golf term. And like, right? Like, I don't go out and play golf. I can if I wanted to, because I do have adaptive golfing chairs and all that kind of stuff, but it's not my cup of tea. So don't want to do that. Don't want to be referred to that. And I've also seen where like people have put it like on doors to like accessible bathrooms where it says disabled toilet. And I made a joke once of like, I wonder what the diagnosis is of that toilet and what is it limited in doing, right? Um, and so for me, again, anybody that's listening and they're within my culture as well, and they like some of those terms, like hats off. That's cool for them. But for me, um, I would rather be a proud disabled woman and use that terminology and not skirt around it. Because to me, it's not a bad word. It is not a negative stigma. Like so often people even say like, oh, you're wheelchair bound or you're confined to a wheelchair. And the reality is, my wheels give me freedom. My wheels have gone thousands of miles in many different states on many different adventures. And without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. And thanks so much to Real Mobility, who created the Firefly. That's another thing in my book. But it's an electric third wheel attachment that I can add to my manual wheelchair, and it pretty much turns my wheelchair into an e-bike. So it's opened up so many possibilities of going outdoor hiking on semi-accessible spaces. It can go on paved trails, it can go on dirt, it can go on limestone, crushed granite, all the different things. And so there's so many ways that our lives can be opened. And I also feel like now my annoyance is I can't stand special needs. I can't stand special ed. And the reality is like every single human being has needs. What makes me needing a transfer bar in a bathroom special? What makes me needing to have a wider parking spot for my van that opens on the side for my ramp to come out? Why is that special? It's just a need. So sometimes that we can feel like we're being infantized, which means we're being made to feel like we are not independent. We are not people with dignity. We are not people that are seen as like anybody else. And so, again, that's why I say for me and where I'm at now in my journey as a disabled woman, it is not a bad word. And I want to keep fighting that stigma because every life is impacted by disability. When you have 1 in 4 Americans as identifying as disabled, and we know because there's still that negative stigma out there that people are choosing not to identify, um, we just know. And a lot of people, I don't know that I'd necessarily like this saying, but a lot of people will say, if you live long enough, you'll experience disability. And there is, truth in that. The natural aging process tends to make our bodies do different things in different ways. And so, yeah, I mean, we're all impacted by disability. So let's stop making it seem like a bad thing or an undignified thing and just realize that it's something that is.
One final question. You coach a Lego robotics team called the Robo Dweebs. What is it like to coach a Lego robotics team?
It is chaos and fun and a lot of work all rolled into one. I start my 13th season upcoming in August, and it's just great. It's geared for middle schoolers. I have loved coaching and teaching middle schoolers. I love stealing some of their energy and their sarcasm and all the things. And every day is different because their bodies are doing different things and my body's doing different things too. So I think that's kind of how we just get each other. And I really love the first robotics program because we get about 8 months, give or take, depending on how far we advance in competitions. And the kids have to not only design a robot to complete as many missions as they can in 2.5 minutes based on Lego models that we have to build to specs that are given from first. They also have to do a presentation on why they designed the robot and coded it the way they did and what was successful, what wasn't, what did they do about it using the engineering process. But they also have to find a real world problem and create a real world solution based on the theme that's given out each year. And my favorite part is they are judged in their core values. So how do they work together? How do they reach out and do community outreach to anybody of all ages within their community? And so, let alone learning presentation skills and just all the things that we need to learn to be better humans. And so that's why I've given so much of my life to this program, to the Robo Dweebs, to our secondary team, Agate Prime, that was just started 3 years ago. And so it's just a fantastic program, and we've gotten a lot of community support. And yeah, it's just been a great opportunity, and I hope it continues long into the future.
Jenna, you were an amazing guest to interview, and I thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you, Aaron. It was great to have a conversation with you.
Jenna was one of my favorite guests that I've had the opportunity to interview for this podcast. While I'm on the subject of disability, I'll take the opportunity to mention the 2026 Winter Paralympic Games start March 6th. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.